in exchange for a fifth-round pick to the Carolina Panthers, removing another team from the Jimmy Garoppolo sweepstakes. I explain the implications of it all right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, obviously, the biggest news, Baker Mayfield being traded to the Carolina Panthers, as I said, in exchange for a fifth-round selection, and it's not even in this year. It's not even next, or actually it is next year. It's in 2024, a conditional fifth-round pick that can, I think, turn into a fourth-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. The Cleveland Browns, though, did an interesting package. They're now paying $10.5 million of Baker Mayfield's salary to move him this year in exchange for only a fifth-round pick. The Carolina Panthers in this trade are essentially trading a fifth-round pick for Baker Mayfield while paying him only $5 million for this year. So it's a pretty good deal for the Carolina Panthers. But more importantly, what does this mean for Jimmy Garoppolo? The 49ers now have really no trade candidates that are just jumping off the page for Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm going to explain the situation, what could happen, and what's likeliest to happen. If you guys want, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to check out my content on 49ers Web Zone, where I did explain this all in an article as well. But starting it off, Cleveland Browns now have moved off Baker Mayfield. Their entire situation is unclear as of now. They have Deshaun Watson under roster, but he is likely to face a suspension. I think the NFL has looked to go for an indefinite suspension and trying to get something done at least in the range of a year, meaning Jacoby Brissett, right now, their backup quarterback, is the quarterback that likely will be starting week one as of now. Could the Cleveland Browns want a quarterback? I think they could be in the market for one, but not currently in the trade market. And here's why. The only other team really that is looking for a quarterback, or might not, it's not looking, but might be in the market for a quarterback, is the Seattle Seahawks. But the Seattle Seahawks, additionally, are probably trying to get closer to contention sooner than later. And the best way to do that is to get a franchise signal caller in next year's draft with a strong quarterback class. And I think signing Jimmy Garoppolo or trading for Jimmy Garoppolo hinders that plan because Garoppolo will win you 6, 7 games next year. And that puts you maybe around pick 10, pick 12, in which you might be out of the range for one of those top signal callers in the draft, further hindering your rebuild as a Seattle Seahawks. So, as I said, the only contender right now that could potentially move for Jimmy Garoppolo is the Cleveland Browns, but they're not inclined to do so under any circumstances. Before I continue, got to shout out my guy Kali. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And he asked, do you feel Jimmy gets cut or traded? I'll explain that in a minute. But the Cleveland Browns, I said, are the only really serious contender. However, they're under no inclination to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. They're the only team that probably gets Jimmy Garoppolo via trade right now, given the amount of salary cap that they have and all that. But moreover, if Jimmy Garoppolo gets cut, they're the likeliest destination for him. They've got a strong running back group. They've got a strong offensive line, and they've got Amari Cooper as a receiver with the possibility of adding more because there's so many good names in free agency still. So they've got a strong infrastructure, as I mentioned on Twitter today, and it is important to me to note that because now Jimmy Garoppolo really can just fit in there, especially in Kevin Stefanski's scheme, and he can do well. And so, to me, I don't think Cleveland should trade for him just because they can probably get him in free agency. I wouldn't be surprised if some details of that have already been discussed behind the scenes between Garoppolo's camp and the Cleveland Browns. So, to me, I don't think that Garoppolo gets traded anymore. Really, the Carolina Panthers were the clearest team. It wasn't because of their interest in Garoppolo, but moreover, it was because they probably don't get Garoppolo if he gets cut just because they're not as good of a team as the Cleveland Browns. And remember, what is Jimmy trying to do right now? He's trying to build up his value for next season so that teams would sign him as a starter next year when they get there. And the best way to do that is surround yourself with the best possible team, and that is the Cleveland Browns. Before I continue on why I believe Jimmy gets cut, got to give a shout out to my guy, 49ers Throwback. Thank you, Fernando, for tuning in. And Chris, he says, my 3-year-old son handed me my phone and I see your stream playing. Well, you got to start him off well at a young age. So thank you for tuning in as well, Chris. But now, Garoppolo getting cut. Why should the 49ers cut him as opposed to keep him? We've been talking about this for months, right? The 49ers currently have Jimmy Garoppolo on a $24.2 million base salary and a $26.95 million cap hit for 2022. However, that 24.2 million is non-guaranteed for 2022. That's the reason that Jimmy Garoppolo currently is valuable to the 49ers. It's because his salary is non-guaranteed. However, that salary essentially becomes guaranteed if he gets traded. So it's important to note that Jimmy Garoppolo, like all the other teams, would have to carry that money. And as I said with Baker Mayfield, to trade him, you're probably going to have to eat a ton of his salary. Jimmy Garoppolo has a higher salary than Baker Mayfield had. Mayfield had an 18 million salary. He agreed to a pay cut to 15 million, and the Browns paid 2/3 of that salary. Are you telling me you want the 49ers to pay 18 million of a non-guaranteed salary just to get a conditional fifth round pick in return? I don't think that that is realistic, and I don't think that that is the best way to to really go about your roster. Instead, that 18 million in additional money could be used to sign midseason additions, could be used to extend Debo Samuel and Nick Bosa, which currently would require just a little more than the cap space that they have right now when you factor in signing bonuses and how the cap hit should elevate just a little bit in 2022. So to really function with your entire roster and not make any significant additional moves, like cutting Samson Ebukam, who could be a talented contributor on your defensive line, the best way to do so is moving off Jimmy Garoppolo's salary of 24.2 million. And right now, that seems like the likeliest option. The 49ers don't lose anything if they cut him. They only have 1.5 million in dead cap in addition to that 24.2 million in savings. So it's a clear indication that they should cut him. And with the lack of suitors, I don't think that they're going to get a trade done. If they do, then they're likely going to have to eat salary on top of that trade, and they're probably getting minimal compensation in return, if not any. Because Baker Mayfield is a 24-year-old quarterback going into the last year of his deal, like Garoppolo, but Garoppolo is more injury prone, in my opinion. He's also 30 years old, and I think he has less potential. So to me, I don't think Garoppolo will fetch as much, or he'll only fetch similar to what Baker Mayfield got, and that's a conditional pick in 2 years. I don't think that that is valuable at all. Remember, the 49ers were looking for a second or a third round pick earlier this year. You're not getting near that value. And so to me, it's clear there's only one option, and that is to cut Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think that that is. I don't think that there really is any other alternative. Now, going to the comment section, No Border Sports, thank you as always for tuning in as well, and thank you for your praise, Chris, on my insight. No Border Sports asks, do you see them holding him right up to week 1 and then cutting him? Now, if the 49ers do this, this is not like when you talk about roster politics and doing right by your players, if the 49ers do this, this would not be doing right by their players, because Garoppolo then essentially is without a job to begin the season because teams won't have enough time to integrate them into their offenses. Now, I could see this happening because the 49ers don't want Garoppolo to go to another team where they could hurt the 49ers, specifically maybe the Seattle Seahawks, although I've told you why that is somewhat unrealistic. I could see this happening, but I don't think that this is likely. I think that the best way to move forward is to make it clear that Trey Lance is quarterback 1. And while the 49ers have been inclined to keep Garoppolo, as we've seen this offseason, I think once Garoppolo clears his physical, which has yet to be done, and starts throwing, I think that's when they start to cut him, because Kyle Shanahan said if by training camp Garoppolo is still on the roster, he does foresee Garoppolo practicing. I don't want it to get to that stage. I don't think the 49ers should either, because guess what? Garoppolo, if you practice him and if he gets injured, that 24.2 million immediately becomes guaranteed, and that's an issue for the 49ers. The reason they're in the situation that they're in is because Garoppolo was injured, and that guaranteed a certain portion of his contract. And so, to me, I think the best way to do so is to cut all ties before that possibility can even arise and let him go. Because even before training camp, there probably isn't enough time where there will be some bumps down the road in the beginning of the season. And if he goes to the Cleveland Browns, that's in a different conference. You don't necessarily have to face the ramifications of that, if there are any, if he goes to the Seattle Seahawks, something like that. So to me, I don't see them holding him up to week one and then cutting him, just because they've normally done well by their players. But Itchy95 asked the question, do they owe that to Garoppolo? In my opinion, they don't. Both sides have been kind of going back and forth in this. I think that they don't owe it to Garoppolo, but I do also think it's not for Garoppolo. It's really for the team, because you make it clear that Trey Lance is quarterback one. You also give Nate Sudfeld and Brock Purdy the needed reps, because remember, right now the backup quarterback situation is unresolved. We don't know who's going to fare better, one or the other. And the best way to do it, Trey Lance said it himself, and the receivers have said it himself. The best way to see who the guy is just to give him reps. And if you give Garoppolo reps as quarterback number two and then don't use him for the entirety of the season, I think that hurts your team, because guess what? You don't know what you have in Nate Sudfeld. You don't know what you have in Brock Purdy in real game action, and that's important to me, looking at quarterbacks and trying to evaluate who can be a sufficient quarterback number two. So to me, I think you shouldn't let Garoppolo practice. You should give all the reps to the three quarterbacks that you have on the roster now, because they give you the best chance of seeing what you will be in 2022. And so to me, I don't think it's because they owe it to Garoppolo, but I think they owe it to their quarterbacks on the roster right now and to the receivers on the roster trying to integrate themselves with the current quarterback group. So I think that they should cut him right away, once that physical is passed. But I wouldn't. I don't think it would be unrealistic for them to hold him just to try and squeeze as much value as possible before releasing him prior to that guaranteed date, up to week one. So, guys, this has been a great episode. Thank you all in the chat for tuning me in. And I think that right now it doesn't seem clear that Garoppolo will be traded at all. There aren't many suitors, and the ones that could potentially arise likely wait till he's released, such as the Cleveland Browns, just because they are the front runners to sign him. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel, be sure to like the video, and comment any questions you have in the chat below. My Twitter handle is at Rohan Chakravarthi. Be sure to give me a follow there, and we will be back in about 45 minutes with a special show with John Chapman of the 49ers Rush podcast. I'll see you guys then. Peace.